So I've come to realize that there's this kind of weird thing I do whenever I feel like I'm struggling with something, or at least it's what I've been doing lately, which is just kind of to imagine myself in these incredibly impossible scenarios that kind of represent all the repressed emotions or most prevalent emotions that I'm going through at the time. And I'll give a few examples to kind of give you an idea of what I'm talking about. The first example is whenever I feel like I'm trapped in my life, or I'm in a situation that I can't get out of, or, if I just feel like I've lost control completely, I kind of imagine myself in this really dark dungeon. It doesn't have any walls or ceilings. It's just one single wall behind me that goes up as high as the eye can see. And I'm there, and I'm really scrungy and dirty, and my clothes are tattered and torn, and it looks like I've been there for a long time, like I've been a prisoner. And I have these chains, there's chains on the walls, and they go out to my wrists. There's one on each hand, and I feel myself pulling and pulling on these chains as hard as I can, just trying to get something to break. And I can feel myself pulling on these, and I'm screaming in anger at the top of my lungs. It's very dramatic inside my head. But the funny thing about this one in particular, and really a lot of them in general, is that I can almost feel myself making progress in the fantasy realm, depending on where I am in the real life situation that I'm stuck in. To elaborate, some days I feel like pulling on the chains is useless and pointless, and I often just crash on the ground in dismay and just frustration. Other days I keep pulling, and I can almost feel the rocks start to give as I keep pulling and pulling. My arms are bruised and beaten, and my wrists are bleeding from all the effort, but I keep pulling because I feel like in my soul that something is about to break. Either it's going to be me or it's going to be the wall, but something is going to break, and it's going to break soon. And then there's that glorious day when I just get really angry, and I give one last pull, and the entire wall behind me completely collapses, and I just stand there, and I picture myself looking really, really pissed off. But at the same time, I feel accomplished, and I feel like I can take on the world, and I easily just pull the chains right off my wrists like it's nothing at that point. The second one I experience is whenever I feel physically, mentally, or emotionally drained, or all three at once. I kind of picture myself hanging on the edge of a cliff, and I'm grabbing on, my two arms are extended as far as I can in front of me. I'm grabbing onto this ledge, like a crevice that I can hold on to, and my entire lower torso is hanging from this cliff, and I can almost feel the pull of gravity trying to pull my legs down and try to drag me with it. It feels like gravity's intentionally trying to pull me down to this dark abyss where I can't see the bottom, and I'm afraid to even look. So I'm holding on to this crack in the ground as hard as I can. And it's during these times when I'm holding on to the cliffside, it feels like that's a time where I just need to keep holding on to that for as long as I need to, until I can feel the strength return my arms or my body or my will, and I can pull myself up from it again. But it always feels like fighting an invisible force, and sometimes it takes a long time to be able to beat it, more or less. Other times, when I feel like there's no way I can say this without saying a bit angsty, but when I ever feel like the world is kind of pushing me down, or there's a barrier, some kind of invisible barrier that I can't seem to get past, I kind of get this image. It sounds kind of silly when I say it out loud, but I kind of picture myself like Icarus, for those who know Greek mythology. I imagine myself with these big white wings, and I'm flying up into a bright orange sky, and I can feel I'm really pushing, I'm really just pushing through, because I can feel this huge gale force of wind and gravity, and the rays of light trying to knock me down or distract me or dissuade me. But I keep pushing despite all that. And then I kind of fly into like a storm cloud, and I can see the lightning crackling all around me, and I can hear the booming of the thunder in my ear as it just erupts in every direction. And for a brief moment, I forget which way is up or down. I just get lost, and I just keep looking around, lost and confused, trying to figure out anything, really. But eventually, I break through that, and the weird part is when I do, I fly high above it, but I find myself looking back at that storm cloud with a strange sense of melancholy. I don't know what that means, but just kind of how I imagine it. The one I've been experiencing lately is a bit different, and in fact I only really became aware of it pretty much earlier today, so as I'm recording this. So it's pretty fresh in my memory. In this one, I'm in a pitch black room. You can't see anything any side of me, and there's nothing illuminating the room except for a single spotlight, which is on the ground and it's pointing directly down. And that's where I am. I'm sitting in the middle of the spotlight. But I'm not me necessarily. Instead, I'm a little kid again, and I'm on my knees, and I'm crying. And I'm crying because I look around me, and I see all these broken pieces. And I don't know what it was that I broke, but I just know that it was important. And I'm crying because I feel like I've lost something important, and I'm never going to get it back. And I'm also crying because I'm afraid that others will find out that it's broken. And the ground around me is littered with glue and tape and all kinds of other things that I've used to try to fix it, but ultimately none of it worked. So at this point I'm frustrated and I'm tired, and I'm just crying because I don't know what else to do. And while I'm sitting there scared and frustrated, I imagine this woman who's much taller than I am comes up to me. She has a very angelic look to her. And I look up at this woman and I just very earnestly say, "Can you fix it?" And she looks at me, and she looks around and sees this mess that I've made, and she starts laughing. But it's not a cruel laugh. It's not like a mean laugh, but it's one that almost carries with it a sense of levity. Like maybe it's not as important as I've built it up in my head. And she looks at me and she says, "No, I can't fix it. And I think you've been trying far too hard to put the pieces back together for far too long. I can't help you fix it, but I can help you clean up the mess." And that's as far as this particular fantasy goes. I admit these fantasies are kind of a bit on the nose, but I think the reason I have them is that it gives me something else to focus on. Like, it condenses all the problems and all the struggles into a single problem and a single struggle. And that just makes it easier to process in a weird way. Maybe it's a way to just give myself a sense of control, or maybe it's kind of a way to give myself a sense of control in a situation that I have no control over, which is always kind of in my Achilles heel, or just to give myself like a sense of direction, of a place to go, of what to do. Especially in those times where it just feels like there's no clear answer or no clear anything. Or maybe it's my imagination trying to give form to an emotion or a series of emotions in a way that makes sense to me and I can process it. Maybe I can deal with it a little better that way. I don't know, but it's a tool. It's a tool that I can use to try to make myself better. So therefore, it is useful for whatever the reasoning for it may be. So I'm going to keep doing it. I guess that's really all there is to it. So what about you? How do you visualize your struggles?